What's up, Chooms? JonJonTheWise here, and I got another episode of Tabletop Cyberpunk for you guys. Today, I have a very special guest. I have with me Gary from Cyberpunk Independence, a Cyberpunk Red actual play. How are you, Gary?
I'm doing great, John. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. It's a Saturday. We're here to talk about Cyberpunk and connect. We were just talking about how it's always good to connect with other creators and help each other raise up, right?
Yeah, a strong tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, that's something Luke the Goon, my buddy, told me back in the day when I first started doing YouTube, because he was one of those nice guys too. You know, it's always good to meet people like that when you're getting into the business, as they say. But
yeah, when I started, it was very much supported by a whole bunch of other people, and I try to pass it, pay it forward as much as I can.
Yeah, for sure. I totally get that. Before we start, please plug your show, plug your network, whatever you guys do.
Yeah, Cyberpunk Independence is, as you said, a Cyberpunk Red actual play, which follows erstwhile family group trying to make it in Night City. And they're in the process of unraveling a potentially world-breaking corporate plot. We are going to be joining a podcast network, and we look forward to talking more about that in the coming weeks. And we're super excited to be going into season 3 in mid-March.
Very cool. And do you guys have everything on YouTube, Twitch?
Yeah, so we do Twitch. We have everything on YouTube, and it's also on your favorite podcast network: Spotify, Apple, Google, Podchaser, iHeartRadio. Pretty much everywhere you get a podcast, you should be able to find us.
Yeah. It's 2023. If you can't find a podcast, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So that's cool. How long have you guys been into? How did the podcast start? How did it begin with the game and everything?
Yeah. So the storyteller Emma and I have been friends for 20 years, and she's been into Cyberpunk very, very close to the beginning. She started playing in the 80s. When it was really just emerging as an RPG genre. And at the time, I'd been producing some Dungeons and Dragons charity actual plays for to raise money for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is an extremely rare disease. And we raised about $35,000 over a couple of years for that cause. And with the rise of Cyberpunk Red, with the emergence of Cyberpunk 2077, we thought it was a good time to try and do something different. Obviously, as we talked about before we started recording, there's a ton of D&D actual plays out there. We felt like we had the capacity to do something different and fun with Cyberpunk Red. And we also had the idea of, particularly in the beginning, making it a teaching podcast. So as we were learning the game, we wanted to teach the game to our listeners as well. And that's sort of where it started with that conversation. And then we brought along a group of incredible performers and players to join us on our Cyberpunk Red journey.
That's cool. So when you're talking about like how you teach people throughout the game, what does that look like?
Yeah, it was more in season 1 than season 2, particularly in the video version. So we're primarily a podcast now, but we had like just explaining how the rules work, repeatedly going over how you calculate difficulty value, opposed checks versus static checks. It's funny because as I mentioned, we're a teaching podcast, and at some point through the beginning of season 2, I realized that we were calculating DV wrong and or success. So as you know, and I'm sure as most of your listeners know, a tie goes to the defender. But for us, we were doing it. The tie goes to the roller, and I think I might have shouted "oh shit" in the washroom as I was reading this. And we had to admit it on our teaching podcast, like, "Hey guys, we've been doing this wrong the whole time. We're going to start doing it right." But ultimately, Cyberpunk Red is a very simple, accessible system, and even the players who've been playing it for a long time don't get it right. And when we're talking about how to play and how to teach the game, we constantly get things wrong. And I think the most important thing for us is to talk about that and explain what we did wrong and how to do it right. because we think that there's a bunch of people who are listening who want to become better at the game, who want to learn the game. Because I think, especially now, there's a lot of people who are looking to expand their horizons in the TTRPG space to different systems.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with all the OGL drama, which, by the way, if you guys are listening to this podcast and you're not in the know, looks like Wizards of the Coast backtracked everything. They're like, we're not changing anything. Everything's staying the same, which is a huge victory for the tabletop community. But yeah, you know, that's how it goes. People get tired of D&D. They want to try other things, and they look at all the podcasts, or not the podcast, all the games that are out there, you know. And what I've learned from playing new games is all the rules might be a little bit different, like the mechanics are different, but they all play the same way. You know what I mean? There's role playing, there's combat, and then maybe there's a little bit something extra that this game has that other games don't have. Like, for example, Cyberpunk has the face down mechanic, you know, and I think Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu, they have this one where you like push your luck or something like that. Is that them?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
It might be some other. Oh no, I think that's Kids on Bikes. But anyway, so there's always going to be like a small little thing that makes it unique. But at the end of the day, you're sitting at a table, you're playing with your buddies, and you're role playing, right?
Exactly, and you're empowered to do that in all these games. And I think one of the things that Cyberpunk Red does really well is the life path system, which is just can become super wacky. I know when I rolled my first character, I ended up having three ex-lovers.
Oh man.
And I was like, one of them was in jail, one of them was missing, one of them was dead. So it also sort of spurs that storytelling aspect, which is a really unique and wonderful part of Cyberpunk Red.
Yeah, I've always loved the life path, even in Cyberpunk 2020. Did you guys ever play that back in the day?
I didn't, but I know my storyteller Emma did for sure. She's talked about many long nights in the dark future, particularly through the early 2000s.
Yeah, so the life path system was actually inspired by Traveler's life path system.
Oh, yep.
I haven't played Traveler, but just because it has that thing, I'm like intrigued to check it out. And I found it to be the most superior way to flesh out a character before you even start playing the game. I know like D&D has like backgrounds and stuff, but backgrounds they seem like just like an extra mechanic, an extra rule that just kind of makes your character a little bit unique, but it didn't really make a story about your character the way the life path system does.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It's just one thing you develop in character creation. It doesn't particularly make you stand out in any way. But Traveler is one of the few systems where your character can die in character creation. So if that's not a plug for trying Traveler, I don't know what is.
I know, it's cool. It's like a novel idea. It kind of sucks because it's like I've been here for 2 hours making a character and then it died.
Yeah.
But it is a cool idea, just the idea that it can be there. It's kind of like the idea with Cyberpunk where your character can die easily throughout the campaign. Yeah. It's the same kind of like danger, you know what I mean?
So, yeah, it feels like you're on a knife edge all the time in Cyberpunk, and anywhere around a corner there's somebody that's got a bullet with your name on it, it feels like.
Yeah. So talk to me about you guys playing Cyberpunk. What is it about Cyberpunk that drew you in the first place and has you guys dedicated to it?
I love the idea of playing in a dystopian future. It feels like kind of a way to express yourself in beyond fantasy, and yet not sci-fi. So it's still grounded in reality, in things that you know, but everything's a little different. So one of the things that Emma's done in our game is she's brought stuff from the real world into the game, but made it different. So there's some grocery store that you might have heard of that is sort of like a rundown facade. It's not anything significant to the game. It just allows you to connect what's happening in the game to what your lived experience is. And I find that really allows you to immerse yourself in the world. I
Yeah.
really like how the character leveling system works. I think making yourself better is a really cool way to do it. And when you're playing Cyberpunk Red, I think probably my favorite part is hitting people with a golf club.
Yeah. A melee attack.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I like that too. I get it. I've been actually considering making a video about melee weapons. That's like one of my list of things, because I love the way that it's used in the game in Cyberpunk Red as opposed to 2020. In Red, you ignore half armor, and there's a lot of reasons why you would want to have a melee weapon to ignore half armor, and it just adds a totally new element to combat, because it's like you're not just standing behind cover and trading, you're getting up in the business of the bad guys too.
Yeah, the character that I play in Cyberpunk Independence is actually a partially melee focused character. So he walks around with a golf bag full of different weapons. He's got a shotgun, an assault rifle, a sniper rifle. He's got multiple golf clubs. There's a crowbar in there, and I look forward to sharing more about what is in there in season 3. But yeah, pulling out that 5-iron and then following up with a karate chop to the face is pretty satisfying. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's very much Casey Jones, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't specifically inspired by Casey Jones. I just thought it would be wild to have this character sort of walking around with a golf bag, and everybody's like, "The hell? Like, why is he in the corpo zone with a golf bag?" And it comes to a point where your reputation precedes you, and it's like, oh, well, if somebody's carrying a golf bag, you just sort of steer clear. You don't want to get your face wrecked.
Yeah. If you're in the know, like there's nothing good in that bag.
No, there's a lot of bullets, and they've got a lot of names on them.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys have been playing Cyberpunk for quite some time now. You're going on to season 3 now.
Yep.
So how long have you guys had that game going? Has it been 2 years?
Yeah, so we started. Artel Sorian has been really great and very supportive, as you know, of content creation, actual plays. Very supportive of all of the ancillary stuff that goes in supporting their games, which has been great. So they sort of sent us a copy of the book so that we could build our characters in advance. I guess we started in Cyberpunk Red came out in early 2021, I think, and we started in late 2020, building our characters and starting our show. So it's been about 3 years, coming on 3 years now, that we've sort of been concepting this. And there's been change in cast and characters, but the core of the game has been the same, really focused on the idea of this found family and how they make their way through this dystopian future, like how they're trying to survive. The thing that I think, one of the things that's unique about our game is the background setting is in a reclamation zone neighborhood. But instead of everybody sort of trying to get ahead and step over each other, it's a really tight-knit community where everybody shares and really fights for each other. And that's actually how our first game started, is that one neighbor said that their kibble shipment from the Reclamation Corporation was stolen. So we sort of like, okay, well, we need to go investigate this. And it led to an interaction with the bozos, and it sort of spanned that one sort of, hey, we got to help our neighbors moment, led us into everywhere that we are now, 3 seasons long. I think we did 26 episodes last season in season 2 and 18 in season 1, but they're a bit longer. They're an hour and a half. Our current episodes are 45 minutes. So
that's interesting. So you guys are doing like a concept that I thought about a while ago, city nomads, where it's like you're a nomad family, but you're not out in the wasteland. You decided to settle in a city, you find a place in the city, and you made a community there.
Yeah, that's exactly that's exactly what it is. Everybody has built this life together, and the nice thing about that nomad family style in the city is that it gives you lots of opportunity for emotional moments. One of the things that I love about TV shows, and some of the ones that have done it really well are Deep Space Nine and The West Wing, are where those small side characters who, like, Jackson, who's always behind serving you soy coffee, or Jay, who's always fixing your car when it comes in. When those characters are fleshed out, and something happens to them, it gives that additional emotional resonance, and it really brings something special when you have to go save them, or they disappeared and you have to find them. And staying put in that area as the Nomad family really, and if you've played obviously Cyberpunk 2077, you've experienced that sort of feeling as well. But that's one of the things we love doing. And Emma, our storyteller, is a self-described monster when it comes to emotional trauma. So,
Oh God.
yeah. She's made a bunch of our players cry multiple times. But to be fair, I made some of our players cry once too. So we're all monsters, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, that's what makes this kind of gaming special. You know what I mean? Because we can take ourselves there. Like, you get so immersed and caught up in the moment and the characters and the investment of time and energy that you can't help yourself but feel emotions. But from the outside perspective looking in, it's like, why are you guys crying at the dinner table playing, pretending to be other people? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
But that's what makes it the most fun. Those are memories you remember for a lifetime. So I totally get that.
I know our cast members, Amy and Feliza, I did something in season 1, and there's actually a video of them sort of the realization of what I'd done, where they just sort of tearing up and become super emotional. We use that as promotion for the show. It's been great. They love it.
Come watch our sad show.
Yeah. Hey, look, the thing about actual plays, and a lot of the passionate fans of Critical Role and some of the other shows like Rivals of Waterdeep, the core of the show is the connection between the players and the characters. It's easy to say it's just a TTRPG show, but like, there are lots of TV shows where people get involved in the lives of the characters, and when something happens to them, they feel it emotionally. So if you're actual play, if you're role play, whatever you're doing in the role playing arena, if you're able to bring that feeling to people and get them to feel what you're feeling, I think that's the purpose of art, is to make people feel whatever it is, whether it's sad, happy, angry. Like that's why I love doing the actual play. That's why I love playing role-playing games, because there's nothing quite like being able to build that story basically from scratch.
Yeah, I love that too. And I feel like if you're not taking those kinds of risks where you might make people, feel emotions, and I'm not talking about like maliciously trying to come after people's like triggers or anything like that. I'm talking about, taking the risk of going to a place emotionally with your players to see how it affects them and how they deal with that issue. I think that's what makes it special. And if you're not doing that, you're really missing out on something special.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's no set way to play a role-playing game. There's no right way to play a role-playing game. If you just want to go to the hot zone and kill gangers all day, totally with you. Like, let's go do it. I'll bring Betty, my shotgun, a 5-iron, a driver. It'll be great. We'll have fun all day. But then I also like to go through those quiet moments of introspection, because ultimately, and I have a D&D show called Scribes and Scrolls, and we have a character or a player named Ricky who sort of he's using his character to explore some of the trauma of his past and some of the things that he experienced when he was really young. And we had to talk about that on. I used to run a 5th edition interview podcast, and he talked about that a little bit on his when I chatted with him, and it was really a beautiful story of how he was using role-playing games to explore his past and sort of understand where he was coming from. And he's not the only one who's used role-playing games in that way. So I love RPGs, and I think they have a power that is different than other art, because you can explore yourself or versions of yourself, or even who you want to be.
Yeah, I have a buddy, fellow content creator, Echo Ren. I'll put it up on the screen and put it in the notes as well for you guys. He did a video where he did kind of like a little bit of a personal study of how tabletop role-playing games can help people with special needs and just how it affects them, see how it affects them in their social life and everything. And he found so many positive benefits in tabletop role playing for people with special needs, where they can like emulate a version of themselves that they're afraid to do in public. And they're like, well, I could try it here. It's safe to do it here. And I can be this person. And then maybe they'll take that into their personal lives and have more confidence in social interactions and stuff like that. It's really good. It's a great video. It's a long one too, because he really put a lot of care and time into it. So I've definitely seen major benefits from tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah, they're powerful for sure. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, so let me ask you, you guys have been playing for quite some time. One of the biggest things that plagues tabletop role-playing, and we saw this in the meme when Dungeons and Dragons movie got delayed. It was like, that's the most Dungeons and Dragons thing, is for a game to get delayed. So how do you guys manage to keep the same group playing for as long as you have and be dedicated to the same game?
So that's a great question, because obviously if you've played role-playing games for long enough, you've had campaigns die because a bunch of people couldn't get together. One of the main ways that we've done it is, if somebody's not available, we will record without them. One of the advantages so our podcast originally started as a stream show, and we had the intention of making a stream show. We had all sorts of visual assets that we were using. We were sort of explaining the rules on the screen, and I would, key in. I was like, oh, this is how DVs work, and this is how skills work. And we went back and looked at the podcast numbers, and like, well, our podcast is doing better, so let's put more emphasis on the podcast. The advantage of doing it that way and not doing it live is that we can sort of, okay, we're all available in fact, after we're recording at 2:30 on a Saturday afternoon, at 4:00, we're set to record our season 3 premiere, is that we get to record 3 episodes at once. So because we're recording in advance, it's not so hard to get people together. But everybody has something come up. So there have been episodes where we've missed people. Chris Siddiqui, one of our players, he's an actor who lots of people who watch DC's Titans might recognize. He's not able to join us full time again this year, just because of his schedule. He's flying back and forth for acting gigs, so he's only going to be with us part time. We just basically the way we've been able to do it is just by doing our best, and that's really it. There's no secret beyond being able to record in advance. Allows us to say, okay, well, today we're scheduled to record 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. So if, for example, we didn't get together for 2 weeks to record, we still have 1 episode left that we can run before we run into trouble in terms of, because we drop new episodes every Thursday. Yeah. And as you know, the content funnel doesn't stop. You got to keep those. You want to try and keep a consistent schedule. Otherwise, you lose people. And that's sort of foremost in our minds. So that's a really long, circuitous way to answer that question.
Yeah.
But that's really what it is the advantage of pre-recording our episodes as opposed to doing them live is really what has allowed us to keep such a steady schedule, because it's not as much strain on people's relationships and lives, because we're just like, okay, we're going to do it and then we're done.
Yeah, I found myself, I mean, that's one of those realizations I had to come to as someone who loved gaming is, 80% of the games that I start will not end. They will never not get to the end of the campaign. Will be, whether it's 2 games or 50 games, we might not ever finish the entire campaign. But what I did find is if you're vigilant and you do your due diligence, Jesus. You tell people, look, once a month we can meet up, right?
Yep.
Once a month somebody can make it work. Let's make it work once a month. And then you do a big gaming session that once a month, and that's it. And it sounds like you guys are pretty much doing that, right?
Yeah, that's basically it. We have, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of consistency, right? So if everybody knows that you're playing once a month, doesn't matter what the date is, at the last Sunday of the month, you're getting together from 3 until 7. You're going to shoot some corpos. You're going to make some eddies. Then that's sort of the best way to do it, because then everybody can sort of plan around it. It's like, okay, for the next 12 months, the last Sunday of every single month, I'm getting together with my buddies and we're going to play Cyberpunk Red. That I think that's the key. Trying to sort of schedule. It's like, okay, well, who's available when? It's really a nightmare from hell that I would not wish on my worst. No, I would wish it on my worst enemy, but generally not like my regular enemies.
Yeah, not the regular enemies.
Not the regular enemies. Yeah. The mooks. No. The end bosses. Yes. They can take scheduling.
That's great. So shifting back to your game, the setting of it. So are you guys in Night City in Cyberpunk Independence?
Yeah, we started in Night City. Basically most of season 1 was in Night City and sort of the outskirts of Night City, and we've explored a lot of different neighborhoods. And season 2 has expanded the borders of what we're doing, because, like I mentioned, we started out just going after this one kibble heist, and then we sort of followed the kibble trail. It's led us all across what's left of America, and we had to steal a plane and subsequently crash the plane.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Yeah. Had to deliver mutant animals to Biotechnica that survived the plane crash. But no, primarily we've been able to explore Night City. And it wasn't until I played, so we started playing, I didn't start playing Cyberpunk 2077 until probably about 6 months ago.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't until then that I realized the scale of Night City.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I pictured it wrong in my mind. I viewed it as sort of like a rundown town. I think that's because that's where we were, sort of in the rundown area.
Like I didn't post-apocalyptic, basically.
Exactly. Apocalyptic, but not, I didn't get that sort of rich versus poor counterbalance. And the game really helped me with that, and it sort of changed my perspective on sort of everything. So it's been great.
Yeah, the way I've always imagined Night City, and I think the video game really captured it, is when you look up, you see technology, you see the skyscrapers, hollow billboards, and it's actually beautiful. It's like you're looking at, this is the future. You're here.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. The architecture is amazing and all that. But then when your eye is level and you look down, you see people sleeping on the streets, cops beating some dude up, booster gangs doing drive-bys, and noodle carts being robbed, all kinds of stuff like that. And that's exactly the metaphor for what cyberpunk is if you're blind, you can turn a blind eye to the bad things and just focus on the good stuff, but those bad things are always going to be there.
Yeah.
So I love that. So you guys said you explored outside of Night City.
Yeah.
Did you happen to use any of the Cyberpunk 2020 source books? Because there is one called Land of the Free that's supposed to be like a campaign that starts in Night City and ends in New York, I believe, or it might be the other way around. I don't remember. But it's like a comprehensive guide of like going across the United States.
I'm absolutely sure that our storyteller Emma has been stealing profusely from that book, because we've done a lot of traveling throughout Night City, or outside of Night City. But I can't confirm it because she doesn't tell us. But her Cyberpunk 2020 collection is vast, so I have no doubt that she owns it, and that we're using it readily.
Yeah, those old books are so like filled with inspiration for everything you can do in your Cyberpunk Red campaigns. I've used direct inspiration from those books to write things, make things up on the fly, whatever, and just having it in a bank in your head. But I mean, Black Chrome's coming out soon. That's gonna shift everything, when it comes to the game.
Very excited. There's a reason that I max out empathy.
Yeah, right.
But it's funny that you say that, because I have a copy of Wildside, which I think is the Fixer.
Yep, it's the
source
Fixer
book from 2020.
The Guide to the Street.
Exactly, the Guide to the Street. It was mostly for the slang. It was. I put out a call on Twitter, I think, and said, "What's the best source for
slang,
street slang?" And it was that. It was Wildside. And then there's been some incredible resources. I can't think of the names of them, that are just collecting all of this language, and it is a repository. They're doing the Lord's work for sure. Collecting all of that stuff, because it's something I've used a lot.
The Wildside actually has this unique mechanic that I never saw in any of the other source books for, the cops, the Rocker Boy, you name it. They did not have the same kind of mechanic. And it is the mechanic of creating your contacts, basically your web of people that you work with. And there's an entire mechanic for it, like
That's
how
so
well
cool.
you know them, how close you are to them, how available are they, what's their attitude towards you, how expensive are they to source. I mean, everything. So I would highly recommend it. If anybody's playing a Fixer, pick up that book, take a look at it, tell your game master, hey, can I implement this? Because you can easily implement it into Red. There isn't like any reason that you can't.
Yeah.
So,
the source books that I've seen from R. Talsorian are really thoughtful, which is how I describe them. They really put a lot of care into what they're doing, and the fact that you can still use all of those resources from one edition to another is really a testament to, I mean, I want to say future proofing, but they've been looking at the future since the 80s. So it just really recognizes that they've been cognizant of how their game works, and they haven't sort of trashed the core of it in favor of something new. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, I agree. It is awesome. Have you guys played outside of Night City in other cities, or have you guys been going kind of all over the place?
So the primary locations that we visited outside of Night City, there's a diner that's sort of on the route to the casino. There's a big casino zone outside of Night City that has been mentioned but never visited by us.
Is that still California, or is it in Nevada?
It's still California, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And or maybe it's in Nevada. I'm not sure. It's been a while that we visited in season 1. And then there's a farm where there's a bunch of family members who are all related in different ways that we visited. I blew them up, most of them.
Yeah.
But now they've become our friends. And then we visited biotechnica facility in Ohio because we had a friend who got kidnapped, and her last signal was traced to Bakersfield, Ohio, and apparently part of this big plot that we're trying to uncover has been in Bakersfield. But Bakersfield will be the first city we visited outside of Night City. Mostly it's been sort of isolated areas with a specific goal. So, we needed to go to the diner, we needed to go to the Burt farm, which has been called, we needed to go to the Biotechnica airports, and then we need to go to Biotechnica. So haven't visited Bakersfield yet, but season 3, I expect we're gonna be there soon. I know Feliza, who plays Alley Cat on our show, is really excited to get to Bakersfield and sort of learn where this plot is taking us.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a Bakersfield, California, and I'm sorry to say if anybody's from there, but you already know this. It's kind of a dump of a place. But people that are from there know what I'm talking about. So I wonder if Ohio is the same way.
Is it California? You might be right. I don't know. I don't know that the state was ever mentioned, but it's just Bakersfield.
Oh, gotcha.
It could be the dump you're referencing.
It could be the same dump, and I'm sure it's still a dump in 2045.
I mean, and let's be honest, in 2045, it could be a literal dump.
Yeah, literally a dump, like where they dump trash. So.
Exactly.
That's cool. So as you guys have been exploring the game, what's really jumped out to you as something that makes it unique from other tabletop role-playing games?
All right, I'm not gonna cheese out and say the life path because we already talked about the life path.
Yeah.
So what I really like the way that they've done character creation. Not specifically the life path, but characters in general. In other games, they sort of feel samey. Like, well, okay, yes, the theming is different, but the characters, more or less what they can do, feels the same. In Cyberpunk Red, so in our game we've got a tech, 2 fixers. We've had 2 net runners, a solo, and a rocker boy.
2 fixers. I wonder how they work together in a campaign.
It's been interesting. I'll get to that in a second, but the characters really feel different, and how they interact is different. I guess I want to say the soul of each character feels different. Whereas in some other monolithic games, it doesn't feel different. They all sort of feel the same and coming from the same place. Yeah, they do different things, but there isn't as much differentiation as I would like. I mean, I love D&D, but that's just how I feel about it. But in Cyberpunk, all the characters feel unique and feel something different. In terms of the 2 fixers, so we had somebody leave the game, and Chris, who I mentioned earlier, came on and sort of finished out the first season, and then was with us in all of season 2. And really, the thing that made it work is Slicks was Chris's character. He was always envisioned sort of as I'm the OG fixer. I'm the type of guy to feed you the jobs. I'm not really going to go on the jobs myself. Who saw Alley Cat, who is our original fixer, as a mentee. So it worked because he was just sort of letting her do the stuff because he's like, yeah, I'm supervising you. You're going to be a better fixer than I ever was. And then our storyteller Emma built out some unique paths for them to each take. And that's why I think it worked, is that if there were just 2 fixers who started with us, then I think that might have been a challenge because there would have been a ton of overlap.
Very much, yeah.
Would have been competition for sort of those story beats, but because of how how it worked out. And Chris was originally just going to be a guest. But then when we lost a player, we asked him to join us permanently. So that sort of the campaign structure allowed it to work, in my view, and have it work really well.
Yeah, I mean, the world of Cyberpunk is very much like that. I mean, like in D&D, the party is usually like, a bunch of good guys. That's like the trope. You're all good adventurers. You're going to help defeat evil. And then when people want to subvert that, they're like, you're not all good guys, but you're all friends. But in Cyberpunk, it's very much like you're not friends, you're coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're all working together for a common goal, and you got to have somebody that you can trust, or else you're basically on your own, and that's dangerous in Cyberpunk to be on your own. So if you have like 4 people that you can trust to watch your back while you're doing a job to survive and get paid, then those people are essentially your coworkers. You don't have to be close with them if you don't want to, but you have to at least know something about them that makes them trustworthy. And I found that like really fun to explore, because there's going to be times where players are in conflict with each other. I had a game, if you guys watch Under the Crimson Sky, one of my players told me before we start the game, I said, what's going on in your life path? And he said, oh, well, corporation's after me in my life path. And I said, okay, let's flesh that out. What is it? Is it which corporation? We came up with Arasaka. And then I said, okay, why is Arasaka after you? He said, and it says it's only one exec, and they have the entire corporation that they can bring down. So it's a powerful executive, right? So that's where you theory craft and you go, okay, that executive, you must have some kind of dirt on them. You're a net runner. Maybe you have like a sex tape, that you're not supposed to have. And it's them hooking up with a Militech exec. And it's completely like, it's embarrassing. The Militech exec was just using them for information. They got played. And now this nobody net runner has the video because they hacked into that system and got it. So it made this really interesting bad guy that I can introduce into the group. Bad guy comes after the net runner, but the net runner player didn't know why. He didn't put it together.
Okay.
I put that in my back pocket. He didn't realize I'm putting it in my back pocket. I'm like, all right, 3 sessions in, you guys are getting jumped by ninjas. Right? So the whole party gets jumped by ninjas, and one of the players is like, okay, my character is from a Night City Correctional Facility. He's a ganger. He used to be a ganger. Now he's a fixer, and he lived the prison life. So he immediately grabbed the other player and said, like, what did you do? How did you get us into this mess? And it was a conflict that occurred. You know what I mean? And that can happen. And that's supposed to happen. And, if where it goes from there, you're treading dangerous ground, of course, but I think if you have trust in your players and in your group, you guys are going to come to some kind of peaceful resolution. But that's something that is not explored in other RPGs, It's mostly like we're all in it together, we're all here to die for each other. And in Cyberpunk, it's like, convince me to care about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the world is shit.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of building that level of trust. That's a great story that he didn't pick up on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And even he genuinely was like, I don't know why. And then they eventually found an agent that was in like a secret compartment, a subdermal pocket. And they open the agent, he hacks it, and he finds text messages of like, yeah, get the hacker. We need to get the video. And he's like, oh, it's that thing.
Yeah. It's and I think trust at the table, whether you're doing a show like Cyberpunk Independence where it's published or it's just at home, trust is really important, particularly for doing those interplayer type conflicts.
Yeah.
Because if you're not careful, it's easy that they can bleed out. I know I've definitely been in games where I was getting needled to the point where I wasn't actually enjoying it. and questioning why I was playing.
Yeah.
So it's hard to have that bleed sometimes. But for example, my character Balzac is a solo,
Balzac.
and he carries. Well, yeah, he's. It's funny because there's been a couple times where people. Did you say your name is Balzac? No, I didn't say it was.
There's a Z. All right.
Yeah, it's a fucking Z. Yeah, I don't know if I can swear. I should have swore, but
No, you can swear.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Because Balzac is the single reason why between season 1 and season 2 we became like for adults only, because I just swear constantly.
Yeah.
And Balzac is a solo, and Alley Cat, played by Feliza, is a fixer. They do not like each other at all, because Alley Cat does really, in Balzac's opinion, I will leave that to the listener. If you listen to the show, I'd be very curious to hit us up on @CyberpunkIND. All the support for Balzac over Alley Cat is much appreciated. In Balzac's opinion, she does things that are just dumb, that don't make any sense. But to Alley Cat, they make perfect sense, and they're really the only option. So we have that sort of going. I don't want to go too much into detail about why there's some underlying trust issues, because I think it gives away some spoilers, but particularly related to my character Cicero, because I play two characters actually in Cyberpunk Independence. I play Cicero, the rocker boy, who is, anti-establishment, like the corporations are only beating us because we're not standing together. Together we're more powerful. We just have to believe that we are. I don't want to talk more about that, but basically he was like, hope is a commodity, and they shouldn't be able to sell your hope. And Balzac is very different. He's just a solo who's really, really good at killing people. And for a bunch of reasons, Alley Cat doesn't trust Balzac and how he came into the game. So that's led to a lot of tension, and the fact that they have different ideas on what's strategically viable. Just don't talk to either of them about an elevator, because they're going to talk to you for an hour about it.
That's great. I love that. Let me ask you this question. When you guys have been playing throughout the campaign, are there any notable hard decisions that you guys had to make where maybe there was a conflict between the players and even the game master as to how to go forward with whatever obstacle was thrown in front of you?
Do you mean like in game or out of game?
I mean both, to be honest with you, because it kind of bleeds out. Like I've had full blown arguments out of character for an hour. It's like, dude, if we do that, this is gonna happen. No, man, we went there 3 days ago and no one was there. Why would it happen now? That, like, I've sat through that, and I actually enjoy it. I don't know if I'm a masochist or something, but
maybe
I love watching my player, because I'm like, oh, I'm making them feel something. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's not suffering if they're enjoying it, right?
Yeah, true. I mean, if they're passionate, it doesn't mean, obviously there's a fine line, as long as they're being respectful, that's one thing, but or healthy arguments, I think, are okay.
Yeah. So, the end, the finale of season 1, there's definitely a decision that my character Cicero made. So we'll talk a little bit about who's on our show. So Emma Wakeland is our storyteller. She's awesome. She's an improviser, an actor, a comedian. She's great. Feliza plays Alley Cat. I've mentioned her. Amy Lindazura plays Tab. She's our tech. Chris plays our fixer Slicks, the senior fixer. I play Balzac. And then Brian Gray from Rivals of Waterdeep. He's a TTRPG performer, a streamer. He's got the voice of an angel, really. Plays a Netrunner, DeRoss. And then Rachel Seeley started the game with us, but unfortunately for us, fortunately for her, she got an incredible job and wasn't able to continue the show. So her character, Billy the Netrunner, didn't continue. We've had some real conflicts, and so I joke about this, and this is actually one of the biggest jokes from season 2, but I really don't like it. Emma, our storyteller, allowed Alley Cat the opportunity we were fighting a sewer gator, because there was people who lived in the sewers who created a sewer civilization, helped us get to the corporate zone via the sewers. But of course, you have to fight a sewer gator when you're in the sewers. And Emma allowed Alley Cat to sort of like use combination of animal handling and persuasion to sort of calm this alligator down.
Mm.
This is a strong point of contention
Yeah.
in the campaign, both in game and out of game. Just because I think it's ridiculous. But now we have Alley Cat has an alligator daughter who goes with us everywhere, and it's like an attack alligator. Somebody wrote it at one point. It's just ridiculous, and
Gotcha.
so both in game and out of game, that is very contentious because I'm like, there's no way her role would have allowed her to tame that alligator. This is some Steve Irwin shit, and she's like, Ronald McDonald, and it's just like it shouldn't be happening. Anyways, it is what it is. But that was a real moment of a contention that we have this alligator with us now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's all in the execution of it, right? Like, if you're gonna have an alligator, taming a wild sewer alligator is gonna be tough. You really got to convince me how that happens.
Yeah. You think it would be, but it's not as tough as I would have liked it to be. But she made the case, and Emma bought it, and I hate it every day.
Yeah. I get it. I would hate it too. But that's part of the thing. It's like if the game master, you got to sell it to the game master. And if they're okay with it, then they are. Because there's times where a player will be like, hey, what if I do this, this, and this happens? And I'm like, I don't know, man. That's so far-fetched. But at the same time, as a game master, I'm not saying you should capitulate to everything that your players are trying to do. But if there's something that they're passionate about, then that means that's how they have fun. Like they have fun exploring those topics. Yeah. So at least consider it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Consider it. So,
and if it's cool, like she loves this alligator. I regret not killing it when I had the chance.
Yeah.
Would have solved all of my friggin' problems, but here we are.
Well, the more you hate it, the more it's going to stay in the game,
Oh, no, right? It's going nowhere. There's like nothing. It's ridiculous. There's even more animals now that have been introduced into the game. Right. Tab is like what's that Disney princess who has like the butterflies and the birds flock to her? She's walking around with an otter and some like snakes that have hats. Oh
man,
it is. Let's just say the trip to Biotechnica was fruitful, but not in the way your edge runner would probably like.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, like I said, it's all in the execution of it.
Yeah,
that's what makes sense for me. Yeah. Those hard decisions that you make in game, I live for them. There's a series I did with the folks at Roll to Cast, the Aussies over there. Shout out to them.
They're great.
We did a little short, like 4-episode series, and in one of them, they came, I had the concept of, because they live in like a utopian society where it's like a little bit communist, socialist. Everybody like works together and they take care of each other. And then a group of them are assigned to go do jobs and then come back, and it helps the whole commune, right?
Right.
So they somehow cross paths with an old grizzled Night City detective. And he's been in the old like South Am wars of the 2020. He's seen like multiple collapses, and he looks at them in disdain and is like, who do you guys think you are, kumbayaing and thinking that you're actually going to make a difference in this world? You're nobody, you're nothing, and you really just go and get people killed with your dumb antics,
Yeah.
So completely disrespectful, and he's annoying. And what happens is one of the players does something which is in character for them, but it ends up being like a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
And he says, all right, you're under arrest for what you did. Basically, you assaulted a police officer, but she didn't really assault him. She just like kind of put her hands on him or whatever. And that's where we ended the session. And then I had to figure out like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? So after like in between the weeks of planning, I'm like, what am I going to do here? Are they going to go to jail and break out of jail? Like, that's not fun, negotiating with a lawyer or what's going to happen here? And I
Mhm.
thought to myself, oh, what if the other cops around him that are his subordinates step in and say like, no, enough is enough. We're not going to let you bully these people just because of your past traumas or whatever. We're tired of your shit, basically.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, so then what happens after that? He leaves. Okay? And I thought to myself, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if he leaves and he gets jumped by a bunch of boosters and he calls in on the radio like, I need backup, I'm about to die. And the other cops are like, we're not doing anything. We're like, if he dies, he dies. And I basically put it in the character's lap. Like, are you going to go save this guy that hates you? Or are you just going to let him die? And they legitimately like voted on it. One of them was like, no, hell no. And stood his ground, was like, we're not doing it. Let him die. The other three, majority, after some convincing, were like, okay, fine, let's go like help him. You know what I mean? And it was an amazing moment because at the end of the campaign, he joins them and joins their group as a dreamer because he's like, you know what? Maybe there is hope for this world if there's people like that out there still. So if you don't take those risks and put them in those situations and put those obstacles in them, you'll lose out on an opportunity like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a primo moment for sure. It sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
It's one of my favorite moments of all time in gaming. Like, I'm so glad I got it on video too. So if you guys want to check that series out, we got that up on the YouTube. So I think we're getting towards the end here. Let me see how much time we have. Yeah, we have a little bit of time left. Is it what's on the docket for the future of Cyberpunk Independence? Is there anything you guys are planning for the future that we need to know about?
Yeah, so we're going into season 3 starting in mid-March. We are really excited because season 3 is going to be our first on a podcast network, which I think I mentioned off the top, and we're really hoping that that's going to broaden the access to our show because it's a really popular network, and we think that people are really gonna dig it. We have Brian Gray, who I mentioned is part of our cast. He joined us at the end of last year, and we're really excited that he's going to be continuing with us for season 3 as DeRoss, the legendary netrunner, and he's somebody that I've really enjoyed playing with. When I first pitched them the idea of coming to join us for a short stint, I was like, maybe my character is just like idolizes you and thinks you're a legend. So he's always like looking at DeRoss with like these doe eyes, and it's like DeRoss, like whispering his name, like it can't even be spoken aloud because if you speak it aloud, it sort of it breaks the secret. So we're really excited to have him, and as I mentioned, Chris Siddiqui is going to be continuing with us throughout season 3. But we're excited to keep telling stories, to play together, because ultimately, as you said, it's about bringing people together and finding the emotion in the dark future. There's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of pain, but if there's one thing my character Cicero taught the group, it's that even in the midst of darkness, there's always a ray of hope. You just have to look for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope that folks will listen to season 3 and start from season 1 if you dig it. But we're really excited about the future, and I know I speak for my cast members, Emma, Feliza, Amy, Brian, and Chris, when I say we're really hoping you'll join us on this ride.
There you go, Chooms. You know where to go. YouTube, Twitch, podcast. Look for Cyberpunk Independence so you can support them and support another amazing Cyberpunk Red actual play out there. And we want to say thank you all for supporting and being a part of the community. Is there anything else you want to tell the people before we sign off?
Thanks for listening. Cheers.
That's it. All right. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you. Bye.